Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish, get it right. And joining me, as always, is my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matt Vader74. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, bud. I'm here. And, I don't know how to finish that sentence when Brian's here. So, whatever. We're here, ready to go, I think. Talking about some stuff.
Talking about some things.
Talking about some things and some stuff and, some other things. I guess, I don't know. I guess I'm not ready. Move on. Give somebody else.
All right. And joining us, as always, he's here. He's queer. He's our gender non-binary Latinx representation on the panel. Our shield against everything woke. Brian from the podcast. How you doing, buddy?
That's correct. I do not have pants on from the waist down. Also, interesting thing. I'm going to Kadish's wedding next week, and I asked him, what steakhouse should I visit? I asked both the Matts. Vader goes, go to this place. It has $14.99 rack of ribs. And Kadish says, go to this place. It has $175 rack of ribs. Those are the two differences between these guys.
See, but the question is where do the locals go to steakhouses?
Right. I'm looking at the menus. I'm like, what? How is a rack of ribs $175?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Is it dripped in gold?
And the one that's $15 is going to taste better than the one that's $100.
I'm sure.
It makes that review of The Shining make that much more sense.
if you are familiar with Vegas at all, you know Bob Taylor's Steakhouse. And that
I'll be visiting.
Know that? Well, then I question. Yeah, question you.
And he is the Lord of the pineapple, the king of the shells. OMB reviews. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I'm slowly recovering. Got a cold last weekend, which when you're a teacher means if you have any post-nasal drip, you lose your voice very quickly. And so I've been battling that all week. I had to put my students through the unfortunate of having to do a lecture with a much worse voice than this. But as Matt Vader was trying to explain the whole, like, how can I do the we're here stuff because of, we already use a phrase with you're here. It's like, well, we're here and we're dear to one another. How about that?
Okay. We're here and we're dear.
Odin sounds like that really old tenured professor
that doesn't give any cares anymore.
Yeah, he's been teaching for like 50 years and he just doesn't give a shit about what you think anymore.
Where's the tweet
Turn
jacket
to page 26.
Leather elbow pads.
I'm waiting to see the tweed elbow pads.
Yeah, that should be good for Odin. So, guys, we had a guest scheduled to be here, the older millennial from TikTok. Really cool guy. I actually confirmed with him that he was going to be on the show this Saturday, and he said yes, and he has yet to arrive. So I don't know. Maybe he's been detained by the government or something like that. I mean,
could be
at this point. But hopefully he will join us at some point during the live stream. But until then, you have us to go through all the stuff that nobody cares about. So it should be.
He's cosplaying as a millennial, so he's super late.
Oh, there you go. But I do just want to say before we get going that it's been 8 years in the making, but Jude and I are finally tying the knot this coming Thursday.
Thank God.
And we've got tons of family coming into town. It's been one of the most stressful things ever trying to organize a wedding because we had our original venue dropped out and we had to find a new venue, because we were planning this thing 3 years ago, right? And then we were like, oh yeah, we're going to be so far ahead of the game. Everything's going to be okay. And, problems just arise and we had to deal with them. But the day is finally here. And Jude is a big ball of stress, which makes my life even more stressful. So,
which I find very amusing, to be completely honest with you, because we all know the only reason that we're having a big wedding is for you, Mr. Kadish.
Yeah, right.
It's for you.
Yeah.
For you.
Which actually makes sense because it's Harry Potter themed.
Yes. But watching Jude watch all her girl instincts kick in over a wedding the last 6 months has been freaking hilarious. Because this is a woman who was like, let's just go through the drive-thru and get it over with. Because all this nonsense is for this knucklehead over here. Mm-hmm. Right? And all of a sudden she turns into a wedding chick. It's like, oh my God. It's been pretty funny.
She took it way more seriously than I expected her to. But yes, I mean, like I'm only doing this once, so I wanted my family to be there, and I wanted a little bit of pomp and circumstance and all that stuff. And we invited tons of people, and it was really hard to keep track of everyone because like we told them RSVP here, and then would just be like texting and calling me like, yeah, I'm coming. It's just like Jesus Christ, like, just
It's
use
the modern age,
form.
dude.
I know, right?
Because when my wife and I got married back in 2017, we were having a very similar issue.
Yes, but everyone on this panel was invited to attend. And unfortunately, Odin, he's too busy with his pineapple. Can't make it out.
If that's what you want to call my daughter, then okay, yes. Like she's going on 5-6 weeks old, so yeah, I'm kind of stuck a little bit.
Awesome.
Yes, but Brian's going to be there, and so is Vader, and it should be a good time. We're just looking forward to it being over, so that we can get back to our normal everyday lives. So should be good. All right. So before we get going, guys, I just want to call out the goal for this live stream, which is 5 new memberships. Just 5, not a whole lot. Yeah. And we're doing a lot of fun stuff over in the members area. We've got new releases every Monday just for members. So be sure to check that out. It's a lot of our more fun stuff, kind of unstructured. Matt Vader goes off on tangents, spits ice into like different drinks of his.
Sucks ice off things. Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Yeah. That
And
didn't
also
sound right.
give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. We're trying to get as many 5-star ratings over there as we possibly can because we want to apply to become officially accredited movie reviewers over on Rotten Tomatoes. And that helps us out every little bit. So we would appreciate that help. And of course, we have our top contributors, our Saturday superstars, Mr. William Forbus, Scotty Dub, Bob Dorsey, and we don't want to forget the AstroNerdBoy. Guys, thank you so much for all the support you've given us over this past year. It's been really, really helpful. We do appreciate it. And of course, our loyalists, the people who give us the most consistent donations stream to stream, which is the Joker voice and Mexican Iron Man. Guys, you are awesome. Thank you so much for that. And our top gifters, the people who have gifted the most memberships out there. We have WG and Jillian N, who I believe is in the chat. And speaking of the chat, why don't we go over there and give some shout outs? Let's see. Anthony Mark is always the first one here. Good to see you, Anthony. We got Danny's mom, Penny. We got the super sticker champion, Gavin Blackburn. Bo, Jillian N is here. Trivia Queen Anima Confusa is in the chat. We got Thrasher613. Mr. Farnsworth is here. We got Regis Red, Cocho Dragon, and who else do we got here? Quantum Cat is in the chat. Let's see here. And Wendy Hunter. Good to see you, Wendy. Shorty Short is in the chat. Bob Dorsey. Hey, Bob. Good to see you.
Show to show.
B. Kenny. John Carter. Richard Lawson. Nick Six, Chappie, Keely Chow. Guys, thank you all so much for being here today. We really appreciate you taking part in the chat.
Real quick shout out Salt Dog over on Rumble. Thanks for being in there, buddy.
Salt Dog.
Studio Lao is also here. So we got a lot of our regulars. Late Night with Cap. That's JT. So guys, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Always love to see you regulars in the chat and participating and all that good stuff. And we also want to give a big shout out to Scotty Dub, who is still our top contributor, despite William Forbus knocking him off of the top donation spot for $500 in one super chat. That was still legendary. Really appreciate it, guys. And yeah, so why don't we just get right into it?
Let's do it.
All right,
Let's
guys.
do it.
So FNAF sets cock records.
What?
By that, I mean Peacock records, right?
God dang it, dude.
Interesting way to phrase that.
Yes. So basically, we have this
FNAF.
article here.
It's FNAF.
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 Yes, it's FNAF. That's what the cool
FNAF.
kids are saying.
Yeah, that's what the kids.
Okay.
That's the cool kids call it. FNAF.
No one's ever accused me of being cool. So guys, all the articles that we talk about in the live stream are linked in the description if you guys want to check that out. But Five Nights at Freddy's is the sleeper hit of the year, it seems. The popular video game has been adapted into a movie, and it was released in theaters and on the Peacock streaming network simultaneously. and apparently it's been breaking records both in the box office and on streaming. And it's pretty interesting because basically this is a film from Blumhouse, which is a Universal studio, and it has replaced previous record holders like Halloween Ends, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and Bel Air on the streaming network for getting the most views. And it's also been killing it at the box office with an $80 million domestic opening and $132.7 million international opening on a budget of what I believe was like $30 million. So it's already in the black, and people are going crazy over this movie. Jude and I watched it on the Cock the other day, and we both thought that it was okay. It wasn't very scary. It's a PG-13 movie, but for people who love the lore and are super fans of the game, there's a lot of stuff in the movie to definitely enjoy. But I want to go to our resident kind of box office guru here, Odin. Odin, what was your take on Five Nights at Freddy's and how well it's doing on streaming and the box office?
It actually made me very happy to see, because I am also someone where I've never played the games. I really had no knowledge of the lore. So I kind of went into it more so because I had one of my students randomly was like, hey, so are you going to go see and review the Five Nights at Freddy movie? Are you going to do that? And I'm like, I have no interest, whatever. But when I found out it was going to be day and date release, I thought, hey, you know what? I really can't go out to the theater. It's very hard for me to do that these days, but I can watch it on Peacock, right? I do have pretty much all the streaming services. And so not only that, but also one unique thing they did, which I thought was very bold, was they had it release at 8 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. So instead of it being a random midnight release or 2 a.m., 3 a.m., right, to give the theaters the advantage, they just said basically, hey, we're going to have an actual just night premiere. So if you want to stay at home, get popcorn together, get your family together, you can watch it. And sure enough, it worked. They did very well for their opening night, especially with that considered. And then bringing in that 80 million domestic. I mean, the reason why I'm happy that it's happening is because the movie's decent, right? I actually, unlike Mr. Kadish, I do post my reviews over at Criticless, and I
know, right?
I'm very proud of that.
God.
I put my decent review of the film because I thought it was decent. There's nothing groundbreaking to it. It's nothing that to me is too exciting. It's not going to be one of my top films of the year, but I had fun with it. I had fun with it. And after the fact, I actually wanted to learn more about the lore. I was like, oh, I kind of want to know now all the things that I may have missed, all the things that maybe I didn't quite understand. And there are just countless videos out there going into this lore. And I had no idea that the game was as old as it was, and that there had been so many games, and that there was so much stuff and just to find out the story in the movie is actually the story of the game made me happy, because I thought for first I'm like, ooh, is it? I don't know. But if this is kind of them trying to explain like a game and give a backstory to it, no, they actually are putting the backstory on screen. And so having a decent film do better than anyone's expectations, like it completely destroyed everyone's expectations, because whenever there's day and date, that's always been the excuse, right? When Black Widow came out, right, everyone was like, well, the reason why it didn't do well is because it's a day and date release model. And it's like, look, I'm not going to lie, that has something to do with it for sure, right? People rather watching it at home than going to a theater. That is true. But what this shows you is that if you don't overspend on your movies, you give fans what they want, guess what? People actually show up to the theater. I mean, this film is tracking right now to make probably well over $200 million at the box office. In addition to the traffic it's driving on Peacock. So you're having a win-win in both cases, because you're already making mass profits in the theater. And again, for this one, it was a $20 million budget. So like they're already making very good profits off of this. And then add to that any new subscribers, kept subscribers, etc. I mean, it's just a win-win in that regard. And they're already talking about how they're going to continue the franchise with more movies. And the fans are like, yes, give us more. So I think that they've found a perfect mix here. They have the audience for it. And I think it just shows you major studios with major properties, if they just got their heads out of their asses for just a few moments and actually gave fans what they wanted and reined in their budgets, they could see similar success. That they could be able to drive both their audiences to the theaters and their audience to their streaming services and get a win in both ways. But we obviously know they don't do that. They don't care.
Well, one of the interesting things about the Cox streaming network is that they've always been ad supported. So like since when they launched, they've had ads in there. So like you have the free version, which has lots of ads, and then you have like a paid version, which has limited ads, and then you have a super paid version, which has 0 ads. So
even the paid version with limited ads has a ton of ads. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
And
like there's every episode has like 6 ads, and they're all like 2 minutes long. It's really outstandingly insane.
Yeah, and so like even people watching who are paying for this service are getting served ads, and so like in a way, Universal's kind of double dipping with that. And so like I feel like streaming properties that do well on their streaming service are way more profitable than something like Disney Plus, like when they have like a hit on there or something like that.
Yeah. By the way, on Chrome, it doesn't show ads. It just shows it on like Roku and smart TVs.
Yeah, some of us just watch them on our TVs. But Brian, you've been a big fan of the cock for a long time. In fact, you've been on air praising the cock multiple times, saying that they're like one of the best
this was the whole
streaming services and stuff like that. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, like, it seems like one of the interesting things about this Five Nights at Freddy's phenomenon is that you have parents who will sit down and watch the movie on the cock, like pre-screening it, to make sure that's not too scary for their kids.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, we'll take the kids to the movie theaters, or we'll let the kids rewatch it on the cock. So what's your take on this? Like, do you think that this was a brilliant move and could be the model going forward for day and date like releases like this?
I believe it is brilliant, but it only works on a service like the cock. Like you said, they have the free tier, the paid tier with ads, and then you basically pay double to get no ads. So that's like $6 and you get like 1 million ads a month. And then you pay another $6 if you're so tired of the ads you're about to kill yourself, and then they stop. But that's genius though, because you have this service where it's a low bar of entry. Anyone who wants to try it out can try it out for $6. And if they really like it, or for free, and if they really like it, they can pay $6 to get less ads and more content. And if they really, really like it and they don't want ads, they can pay another $6 and get rid of it. And even after all that costs, it's still less money than every other streaming service out there right now. Literally every one. Somehow, even with those additional costs. Mm-hmm. And they have, and I'm not simping. I don't work for the cock. Okay. But they have.
No, you work really hard for it, Brian.
I work hard for the cock. They have so much stuff. They have like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office, 30 Rock. They have all the TV shows that we all love. They have it. They have so much content. They have so many movies. It's really insane. And the day and day release thing is going to only work, I think, when you have a service that has so many easy ways to get in and consume it. Not everyone is looking, like people might sign up for Max to watch a movie one time and they're going to kill it. But Peacock is so cheap, they might sign up and literally just like, might as well keep it.
Well, I think you bring up a good point too, because there are different aspects of Peacock that people might be drawn to, like the movies, TV shows, but also wrestling. Yeah, they have the WWE, all of their, like, I think right now, actually, I think that today's the Crown Jewel event. So yeah, like literally you have all of these different things that are going to bring different people with different interest in. So you have all these tiers in addition to that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this service is definitely situated to do very well off of a situation like this.
It's crazy. It has sitcoms we watched in the 90s, the 2000s, has every range of TV show and movie. From original Quantum Leap to new Quantum Leap, New Girl. It's actually incredible how much content they have and how easy it is to digest it. And the layout is easy. When you go there, one last thing. This is the one thing they do that will always be better than everyone else. Continue watching. The very first thing you see is the last thing you are watching. Not like 15 ads before you can finally find what you were watching last. It's just an easy service.
That's a pretty big deal.
I think think it can be easily said that Brian really loves the cock.
I do.
He loves
You sound like such a Peacock shill, man. It's
Bro,
kinda,
bro, they got sliders, dude.
Shill, you're a shill.
Dude, never
Name one
shill
service
cock, dude.
that's
You might as
ever
well
had
just-
sliders.
You might as well just put a big old peacock sign back there where your face is on the wall.
I always have to say, it's like, I'm not
Instead
sponsored by the cock here, but like, I'm telling you, like, if you want bang for your buck, this is the way to go. Now, unfortunately, it's only available in the US, which sort of sucks.
Well, it is a Comcast property, I believe. But yeah, you know what's interesting is that the Cock actually has like a lot of interesting original series on it, and they're rebooting Battlestar Galactica, so they're going to have a brand new Battlestar Galactica on there pretty soon. And you just know when that thing hits, all the geeks are going to unsubscribe to Disney Plus to go over there for a couple months.
It's going to be
watch that
wild
stuff.
when that happens.
Wasn't
If
Twisted
you haven't
Metal
seen
on
American
Peacock?
Auto, you need to go watch that. That is like laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt Vader 74, I know that you don't really have like a lot of affinity for the cock, but you did watch Twisted Metal and you've watched a couple other things on there.
Great show.
What's your take on Five Nights at Freddy's? Because it's like one of the few video game adaptations that's actually been like.
I honestly I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So
Really? It's on the cock.
What's your
It's on the
excuse?
I work nights and my wife keeps me busy during the day. So I haven't had a chance to watch it. It hasn't really been on my radar. I didn't play the game.
I didn't play the game either, but I watched a lot of film theory videos about it.
I was kind of like, I feel like I saw this game, but it had Nick Cage in it last year. It's called Willy's Wonderland,
That's also a great
movie.
film.
which is a great movie.
And there was 3 YouTubers in it, by the way.
I can
You guys
only
notice
do so many movies where the animatronics come to life and murder people.
This is the only one I've ever
So-
sing. I liked it.
Well, you haven't watched Willy's Wonderland yet. Then,
I mean, listen, I understand, but a lot of people haven't. It was a tiny movie with.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about it until this came out. So
Clearly you don't watch our show.
Nick,
So
I don't watch every episode. Jeez.
well,
No,
as Brian mentioned, Matt, there were like some big YouTube cameos in it. One of the biggest ones was Matt Pat.
was
Matt Pat.
Odin in it?
Showed up. Odin was not in it, but Markiplier had a photo of himself in there on the Employee of the Month wall.
Was Drunk 3PO in it?
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw Matt Pat, I was for some reason I was excited like a teenager. I was like, oh, it's Matt Pat. I know he makes content for kids. Like I can watch his content with my kids, and it's like not a big deal. Like he's a clean guy, you know.
And he had his famous "It's just a theory" line before he exited screen left.
It's just a theory.
Was Gary
film theory?
Was Gary or Dan Vask in it? You know, I mean, I don't watch any of all these other people you guys are talking about. So,
have you never seen film
It's people
theory?
that played the games, obviously, that they would put in.
Obviously. I forget the name of the one guy, but he played the cab driver. He's a big YouTuber as well.
I missed all those I missed out. I guess I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird that they put him in the trailer because I know Matt Pat did a video where he talked about how he had to keep his cameo secret. And then he was like, I know other YouTubers were involved, but I wasn't allowed to say anything. And then they just put all this stuff in the trailer. It's just like, oh.
Yeah,
okay.
but they didn't put him, which was genius. And when we saw him in the cafe, I was like, oh, this guy just did a Five Nights at Freddy theory video like a week before the video came out. Like, how is the guy who's seen the script going to do a theory video? And he cleared it up really quick. He's like, this is the one time I didn't actually write the script whatsoever, and I just read what they gave me.
can I ask this question about Five Nights at Freddy's? How long is it?
Like
not
90
long.
minutes.
Yeah,
So it's a normal movie length.
It's a
it's a normal movie.
All right, maybe I'll try to squeeze it in.
It's a normal movie. It has 3 acts. It's pretty fun. It's not like a scary thing.
Yeah, it's
just
not
fun.
scary, which is why I
Not
like
scary.
it. I don't like
Alright.
scary movies in general, so I actually was able to appreciate this one a lot more because it didn't have the.
There's a
stupid
couple
cheap-
jump scares and stuff like that.
Hopefully, I will have a review up on criticlist.com within the next few days.
I trust that you will,
So-
unlike some people.
Yeah,
but
unlike
yeah.
some people.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm busy planning a wedding. God damn it. It's like, how much time do you think I have in the day?
Meanwhile, Jude is the one planning the wedding, right? So
Did you guys, I just want to announce or ask you, the panel in general, about this because we've heard rumblings that Killers of the Flower Moon, or
Garbage
the-
movie.
the 3.5 hour Martin Scorsese epic, theaters were actually inserting an intermission about midway through, so people had time to go to the bathroom and restock on supplies and all that stuff. And Netflix and Scorsese and everyone involved in the theater just went apoplectic about how dare theaters include an intermission and interrupt the flow of this artistic endeavor. And it's kind of interesting because like we've talked about how like when filmmakers have no restraint, right? Like The Irishman was another 3.5 hour long movie. The Justice League movie that Snyder did wasn't like that. Like when you don't really like plan out your movie and you're just indulgent to the point where like you're making like basically a mini series that's being played back to back in the theater, I think that just common courtesy would necessitate that you put in some type of intermission just for like people who don't want to miss anything by going to the bathroom or, getting another drink or another popcorn, right?
Or falling asleep for 20 minutes. It's so fucking boring.
The only reason I didn't go watch that movie was because my wife and I told each other we didn't want to sit through another 4 hours of movie stuff. It's ridiculous.
You saved yourself a lot of headache, dude.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to see it, but I physically cannot find a 3.5 hour time window in my day to go to an actual theater to sit down.
But it's 4 hours. It's 4 hours. Though,
yeah, but I'm the person
with credits. Yeah, sure.
Minutes.
Yeah, with credits.
I'm the person though that I don't like to get there late, and anytime after the first trailer starts is late.
Well, some theaters.
So I'm there for the 25 minutes of bullshit before the movie even starts. Then on that to the movie. So
well, for Oppenheimer, interestingly enough, and I don't know if the studio knew this or not because it was at my local theater. I went to go see it in IMAX, and I got there maybe only 5 minutes late, and the movie had already started. So the theater had actually chosen to not play any trailers so that they could start the movie at the time it was supposed to fit more screenings in. Because the trailers would have made it enough so that they couldn't get that extra one in, which I kind of wonder if they got the studio's permission on that one or if they just tried to, kind of pull a fast one. But I think this also ties back into why this day and date model for Peacock, working as well as it is, I think should hopefully motivate other studios, right? Because for people like me who love movies, who wish they could go to see a Scorsese film, right? I hated The Irishman, but I do love Scorsese. And another longer film of his, Silence, I adore. I think that movie's so brilliant. But I cannot physically go because of my child situation. So I need to have access at home to either start it or, come back to it and all these other things. So, if they're losing their crap over it, for me, I'm like, just put it on Apple TV already. You're not making any money off of this. You're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars on this project already. That's not going to change. Just put it out on the service already.
Yeah. Can I say something about this real quick? First off, I feel vindicated that it's losing so much money because, and I'm not gonna mince words here. It's a shitty movie. It's insanely boring. The pacing is all over the place. There are like time jumps, like it's almost like it's a time travel movie. All of a sudden, he's like, they just got together, and all of a sudden they have 4 kids. There's 15 people now. There's no explanation for like most of the things that happen in the movie. It's incredible how much time they spend on shit that doesn't matter, while never actually giving you the story. And at some point, at the end of the movie, it just turns into a radio drama. The whole movie for me was so boring, so unbelievably, mind-numbingly boring, that I was having trouble staying awake while standing up in the back, waiting for it to end. It was literal torture. It was literal torture. That movie is just a bunch of fart smelling Oscar bait. It's not worth the trouble. Don't spend the money, man. Watch it on Apple TV with a free trial.
And Shane really liked it, so watching you two go at it was actually pretty amusing. If that's
Jesus, that movie was horrible.
If that's still up on your channel, people should check it out.
People walking out, I wasn't the only one. There were people like, "Oh my god, that was horrible." I've never been through a worse, more boring movie.
Guaranteed Oscar winner then.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No.
I'm so happy it's losing money. I'm so happy that Five Nights at Freddy's is destroying it in the box office. I bet you all those fart-smelling critics are like pissed off right now that FNAF is murdering their sweet Killers of the Flower Moon in broad daylight.
Some people in my comment section are those people. They're like, I'm happy theaters are doing well, but really, society, FNAF is doing better than a Scorsese movie, and I'm like,
It's
look,
entertaining, and it's an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
You could take your kids. Nothing about Killers of the Flower Moon is remotely entertaining. It's nothing.
Yeah.
The only good thing I can say about it is the acting's good. The acting's good, but you can only do so much when you have a script and a screenplay that is so spotty and like missing things that half the time you don't know what year it is. It's incredibly boring and so slow and so stupid. I'm sorry.
It's okay, man. Get it
I
out.
hate the movie
Let it
so
out.
much, and I'm so happy that FNAF is destroying it. FNAF. It's a story about animatronic Chuck E. Cheese-esque, not even horror. It's for kids, and it's just murdering this Oscar bait, fart-smelling piece of shit.
If I were theater owners, right, I would get together and collectively say we're not going to accept movies over 2 hours long.
Smart.
Have it be at that, because I mean, like Odin said, like it's hard to make money when you have like a 4-hour movie that like you need to schedule for your.
Don't they say they need to have a like six screenings per theater per day?
But that's the thing. So yeah, the theaters don't really have a lot of control over obviously they can decide whether they want the movie, but they have to agree to the studio's terms. So the studio's going to say, all right, if you want our movie, you got to have 6 showings of it. If it's a Marvel film, okay, 2 of the showings have to be in 3D and they have to be at prime slots. So like basically they dictate how you are supposed to show your movie.
Gotcha.
And so that's why the only way, like, because I agree with Kadish on this, that they should just say, hey, we're not going to do it. What they should really do is they should just renegotiate saying, if your movie is over X amount of time, we have full control over how it gets played. Because I think that ultimately it's like, look, at that point, it should become a specialty event showing where it's maybe once or twice a day, because then guess what? You fill in the screen, you get a packed house for those individual showings of people that actually maybe want to go see your movie, and then the theaters do better because then you have people coming at a specific time buying popcorn and drinks.
It'd be interesting to me. It'd be interesting to me to see take the top 50 movies of all time and see what their runtime is on all of them, just to get an idea.
Also in the case of Killers of the Flower Moon, it's an Apple original movie, right? And the only reason they released it in theaters was for Oscar consideration.
To get Oscar, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So like they didn't need to release it in theater. They could have released it in one theater and would have been enough. But they decided to try to push a theatrical release because it had big name cast.
I mean,
Martin Scorsese.
They checked off all the Oscar boxes, right? So
every single Oscar box.
So it should be good.
And
You wanna
somehow
hear
there
my
wasn't a
theory?
single attractive person in the entire movie. You tell me.
They even made Leo look ugly, man.
Yeah. How do you spend that much money and have that many people in a movie and every single person is ugly as sin?
So you've
It
explained
is crazy.
they're going to win best makeup design. You've just
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
confirmed.
best makeup.
But-
Yeah.
Here's my theory, and I've been mentioning it for months now. But Barbie, as much as I hate that movie, is gonna get nominated for Best Picture, and I think that there is a shot Barbie wins Best Picture.
Oh
You
my
know
God.
what? I don't like Barbie, but I hope it beats Killer of the Flower Moon. I hope it does, and I hope that you can hear the screeching and crying from the crowd in real time.
Well, congrats to Scorsese for thwarting the male gaze. That's definitely something to be more of.
Making a movie that smells like farts, apparently.
But real quick, want to give a big shout out to WG for gifting 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships, and of course Jillian N for gifting 5 Salty Nerd Podcast.
Guys, he
memberships.
only
We've already hit our
needed
goal.
5. He didn't need 10. He needed 5. Just
We got
5
10
is
now.
fine.
We got 10, and they're from our most regular gifters, so thank you so much for that. And we got a $2 super chat from Late Night with Cap JT Gunn. Is Nick Cage going to the wedding? We did invite him, but he was drunk when he got the invitation, so I doubt he remembered.
What?
But we keep reaching out to Nicolas Cage, and he keeps turning us down for coming on the podcast. So
You should publicly invite James Mangold.
Yes, I was just gonna ask.
well, we've already put in our RSVPs and headcount and signed the contract and stuff like that. So unfortunately, we can't add any more new people since the deadline passed earlier this month. But
But I mean, come on, it's James Mangold, you know.
we
I'm going to
didn't
be
invite-
dyeing my hair.
Did you not see Indiana Jones this year? I mean, the
I know.
guy is a genius.
Talk about
did-
Oscar-winning performances.
We did invite my best friend David Hewlett, but unfortunately, he's quarantined up in Canada, so he can't come down.
Quarantined?
But apparently, well, you can't leave Canada nowadays. So
Oh, you can't leave? Wow. That
There's a
sucks.
giant wall, giant COVID wall. It says no.
yeah.
They're
still
still
doing that
taking
crap?
COVID real seriously. That's right.
Good grief.
Yeah.
And guys,
Let's get over it. Get it already and be done with it, guys. Come on.
Nice.
guys, $100 from WG. Just going to assume your fridge needs to be restocked. All the best, gents. WG, thank you so much. Our fridge does need constant restocking because Alex and Vader just raid that thing when they're in the office. And
How
I
many
hardly
feet
ever get
picks is that going to
enjoy it.
cost you, Vader?
How many what?
How many
That's just
feet
one.
picks is that going to cost you?
That's 1 feet pick right there.
That's 1 foot pick. Wow, I got to get in
Yes.
this foot game.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
But,
I haven't negotiated any terms yet, so this will.
But WG, you are now part of the $100 club, so
awesome.
really appreciate the support there. And from our super sticker champion, we got another super sticker for £3. Thank you, Gavin Blackburn. Always appreciate the support.
And it's a little fruit with pom-poms. It never shows the sticker, unfortunately. So
Yes, indeed. All right, guys. So let's pivot from the cock and start talking about the mouse. Marvel's a mess. And guys, I can't believe this article that came out in Variety that basically exposed all the shenanigans that are going over at Marvel. So there was this huge article that came out in the leading trade publication where it says crisis at Marvel. Jonathan Major backup plans, the Marvel's reshoots, reviving the original Avengers, and more issues. And basically, this article kind of details a Marvel retreat, like their annual retreat, and how everyone is freaking out, flipping their lids, going crazy over how bad of a state they're in. They basically built their entire phase around a guy who's now being accused of domestic violence. And, no judgment there because we don't know the details, but it seems like Jonathan Majors has been very problematic for creating their new tentpole around. Also with the Marvel's big movie that's coming out next week, tons and tons of rumors about how that's going to underperform on a massive scale and how the director basically pieced out in the middle of post-production to go and do a different movie. And then we have some insight tea spilling from the Blade production and why Marshala Ali almost said fuck it and just like straight up left. I mean, there is so much stuff here that can be unpacked on this thing. And I hope to God that the rest of you on the panel have actually bothered to read this article because it is fascinating.
I read the thing.
I read it in detail.
I think I need to read it like 2 more times because I there's a lot there and I didn't absorb it at all. So
well, the big takeaway here, and we're going to get into each individual kind of like issue as we go along in the live stream, but the big takeaway here is that Marvel, because of the strikes, basically they had some time to reflect and they know that they're in trouble. They know that everything post Endgame has been an absolute disaster, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we right the ship? And they're actually kind of in the middle of making some very hard decisions about, the future of the company and how they're going to continue making these types of films. So I want to ask you, Matt Vader 74. I know that you haven't digested the full article, but we've often talked about just like the basic problems with Marvel. Like it's too woke. The whole MCU thing, like taking like the political messaging and putting it in the forefront instead of like fun comic book adventure stuff. They have so many stories that they could be adapting from the comics that they're choosing not to. What would you do if you were Kevin Feige to basically fix this stuff?
Well, I would move away from the MCU stuff. I think as soon as this Marvel's movie's done, I think they're going to have to kind of pivot away from all that weird heroes that are chicks that are gay that nobody's ever heard of that are lame,
Make it chick and make it gay.
Make it gay, make it lame, make it brown. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think they're really in a bad spot with this Kang stuff. I think they probably should recast Kang. They should probably get John Boyega or somebody like that to come in.
They should kill Kang with Deadpool.
Yeah, well, no, and they should just make like one movie and end it, get it over with, instead of going out over all these, instead of stringing it out over the next whole phase, just make a movie and end that Kang line.
Kill the Kang thing. It's not working.
Just put John Boyega or something in there and have Dr. Doom kill him. So that then Doctor Doom becomes the big bad guy.
Yeah, and that's a better idea anyways. No one cares about Kang. No one. And you're going to do Fantastic Four anyways.
Right.
This is the time you bring Doom in.
They need to pivot away from that. Just end it, recast it, and
it was a mistake. It's fine. No big deal.
Skip whatever phase this is and move into the phase and have Dr. Doom or bring in Galactus, something. You know, the Beyonder, do
you gotta do Doom
Wars.
First. You gotta do Doom
Secret
first,
Wars,
dude.
Something. So whatever.
You gotta do Doom before you do any of those other characters.
Okay.
Well,
I agree.
You know, Brian, what surprised me, because after Endgame, like they'd already done the acquisition of Fox, right? So like they got the rights to the Fantastic Four, they got the rights to the X-Men. And so I was like, the next logical assumption for like the next big bad of the Marvel Universe would be Doctor Doom. And I was actually surprised when they announced that they were going with Kang, because not a lot of normies know about Kang, but a lot of normies know about Doctor Doom. And so like I always thought that it was an odd choice to go with Kang. But one of the things that I do want to kind of like go into a little bit of detail here is that Kang is a majors problem for HBO for Marvels. And this is an article where basically going in depth into the big disaster with the Marvel retreat. They were talking about, okay, what are our options going forward when it comes to Kang? Because if Jonathan Majors does get convicted for this type of thing, it's a really bad look. They already shot the full season with Loki, and from what we understand, Loki season 2 ends with like Kang basically going full Kang and setting up like the Kang dynasty stuff. So they did kind of bounce around this idea that Doctor Doom should come in and replace Kang. But what's weird is that Kang he's already been in Loki season 1 and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and he's been defeated both times.
Yeah, both times.
And so like it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we know that there's infinite number of Kangs out there, so like you can beat him and like there's no consequences, but it really undermines him as a threat when you have Ant-Man able to beat him, right?
Yeah, you have Ant-Man. You have Loki's variant who stabbed him with very little effort. No, you're right, man. First off, the character has already been demolished. No one cared about the character before. Even the hardcore comic book people didn't really care about the character. The reason they used it, and the reason I was laughing earlier, I figured out why they used Kang. They used Kang because that was the easiest character to check boxes with. Doom is a white male, right? Or as close to white male as on screen as you can get. They don't want to use Doctor Doom. They want to use Kang. And they want to have a million Kangs with the multiverse, and they can do whatever they want. They can bring in all the characters, and it's lazy writing. They can do whatever they want with Kang because he's part of the multiverse, and you can bring back all these characters that weren't, you can't normally bring back narratively, and it just makes no sense. The whole Kang thing is a bad idea, not only because the character is not known, but also you've already ruined him twice. He doesn't feel like a threat to us anymore. The whole Kang, like Council of Kangs at the end of Ant-Man, was sort of ridiculous and weird. No one cares about this. We need to be like, okay, it was a failed experiment. Dump that character. Let's have a movie that deals with them or whatever, and let's move on to the next phase where we actually bring a character and people know Doctor Doom, and then eventually Galactus or whatever, and Fantastic Four and Deadpool and X-Men. Let's start going down that route and stop trying to shoehorn this really bad phase into the system because no one cares about it.
Yeah, and we still got that Eternal poking up at the top of the planet, right, with the head and the hand. But I digress. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Odin, is that we had a Marvel exec fired for basically mishandling Blade, right? He was some motherfucker who was trying to ice skate uphill, and he didn't quite make it. But one of the interesting things about this article that Variety posted was they talked about how like Blade got so out of control that at one point there was a script where it was centered around 3 gay and lame female characters And Blade was basically relegated to a cameo in his actual movie. And it got so ridiculous that Marshala Ali, who was announced to be the new Blade, he's an Oscar-winning actor, he's a brilliant guy. He basically said, "I'm walking. Like, this is not the movie I signed up to do. You basically made me a minor character in my own movie. Why would I bother to spend my time and my political capital doing this film if you're just going to make it about 3 women?" And so it's had numerous directors kind of like quit. It's had numerous script rewrites. And it got to the point where basically Kevin Feige chose the guy who was overseeing it, who had hidden this stuff from him, by the way, and basically said like you're, he pulled Donald Trump. He's like, "You're fired." So it's kind of interesting that all this woke nonsense is kind of bubbling up during this period where they can't make anything because of the actor strike and the writer strike. And Marvel hasn't been able to pivot because of the writer's strike, because they weren't legally able to make any changes. So I wanted to get your take on this. Do you think that that this is actually kind of a blessing in disguise for Marvel, this time to kind of reorient around all the stuff that's been going wrong?
I mean, yes and no, because I think one of the reasons why you're seeing this pivot happen is because, while the strikes were not happening, what was Marvel doing? They were just kicking the can down the road, right? It was every time they would release something, it would make a very, very small, fart in the wind, and then it would just very easily dissipate. It would very easily disappear. But then all of a sudden, as soon as it disappeared, they had another thing coming out, right? So none of them made any major splashes. None of them made any actual headway in bringing new people into their fan bases or really retaining their audiences, right? They've had several films that have just been just utter failures. I mean, the Marvels coming out is expected to be a massive failure for them. So I think that because of that, though, and because there's been no actual content, what has the media had to cover? Because beforehand, the media was complicit, right? The media was complicit in just covering what was coming out, when it was coming out, just kicking that can. But when they had nothing to cover, what did they have to do? They're like, "Oh, I guess we got to talk about those things that, these trolls on the internet have been talking about for many, many years, but now we actually have to, because otherwise we have no stories to cover." And sure enough, what are we seeing? We're seeing a lot more stories. We're seeing the mainstream media outlets seemingly turn on these major corporations. So I think that, in that way, it's bad, right? And I think the best example of that is what we talked about last week, which is that South Park episode, right? It exposed so much to so many normie audiences about all the stuff happening with Kathleen Kennedy and all the stuff happening with Disney, with Star Wars. And that explanation you just gave for the Blade series, I was like, wait, when did Kathleen Kennedy get in charge of the MCU? Mm-hmm. Because that sounds like one of her productions, because everything she's ever touched in that universe has gone through at least 1 or 2 directors, or has had some kind of behind the scenes chaos, some drama. And so it sounds like now the MCU either is starting to go that way, has always been that way, but it was always a lot better covered by people like Feige. And so now that the media is actually having to cover this stuff because there's nothing else to do, hey, now we're in a situation where, yes, they have the opportunity to correct. They have the opportunity to course correct. But with the people in charge who are currently in charge, it's the same thing as with Star Wars 2, right? As long as Kathleen Kennedy's in charge, nothing's really changing. As long as Kevin Feige's in charge, nothing's really changing. So until you actually have a complete, reset across the board, and you bring in people that are, number one, fans of the actual content, and then 2, people that are actually capable of doing something with that knowledge and doing something with that content, it doesn't matter what you do. It's going to still end up churning out the same crap that people are tired of. And so this is a great opportunity for them to do something. I don't think they're going to do it, though.
All right. And I want to hop on over to you, Matt Vader, to talk a little bit about the Marvel's director essentially bailing on the movie. And this was another part of the big Variety expose, where basically the Marvel's director, Nina DaCosta, basically left in the middle of post-production to start her next movie, which is a Tessa Thompson vehicle in the UK. And to me, this isn't kind of uncommon, because you have schedules you have to stick to, and you can kind of oversee post-production from other places on the planet with modern technology and stuff like that. And because the actors strike doesn't affect the UK unions, because it's a UK production, she was going over there because the movie had to start. But what was interesting is that, this is an article kind of outlining the highlights from this portion of the variety story at Bounding Into Comics. And basically the director basically comes out and says, this isn't really my movie, this is Kevin Feige's movie. And so her leaving in the middle of post-production doesn't really matter because she doesn't really have much of a say in how the movie turns out. It's all Kevin Feige coming in.
Well, there you go.
Making the last minute calls. And one of the interesting things, and She-Hulk of all things actually kind of poked fun at this, where you had like the Kevin AI, right, where it was just like churning out like Marvel stuff left and right according to an algorithm or a formula. And but Kevin Feige has been making some really big moves lately with like scrapping Daredevil, starting over with that, choosing to reorient with like Blade and the whole Jonathan Majors thing. But the Marvels seems to be like the culmination of like his MCU strategy that you started with that moment in Endgame where all the male Avengers got together and fought Thanos. But now we have, Captain Marvel, who, it's been rumored that Brie Larson has had certain rendezvous with Kevin Feige, which got her like that role. And then like you have two diverse female characters from lesser known TV shows that Marvel produced shoehorned in there. And it just seems like if this movie bombs, then it's proof positive that the direction that Marvel has been going in is the wrong direction.
Oh, and they know this already.
Do they though?
I think they do. I mean, that's what the whole gist of this article was about, right? They went and had their little retreat because they all know the walls are falling down around them, and they have
the best part of the article.
They have to course correct, or else they're just going to keep losing money. Disney is having a rough couple of weeks. Started out with South Park, then Gina Carano is dropping her freaking articles on Twitter, dropping bombs like every day now. It's just the daily bomb run,
the daily Gina bomb
over bombers over Berlin, every single day now. Then these kind of articles are starting to pop up. I mean, they're having a rough time and they're getting called out. So
my real question for you is that, so it's been widely reported that secretly behind the scenes, it was the James Gunn, when he came on board with Marvel, that secretly kind of plotted out like the end game mark, and that Kevin Feige took credit for it. And Kevin Feige is really not the super genius,
wouldn't surprise me,
super producer that everyone was, kind of hailing him as. And now that James Gunn is over at DC and Kevin Feige is left to his own devices again, we've got two phases under him that have been just a mess. And so the question is, can he actually fix things?
Feige can no longer go to the James Gunn well. Is that what you're saying? Like it's dried up. Now he's like, I don't know what to do.
I think
bring the AI.
I think if he can somehow go back to the roots and start having fun stories from back in the crap came out, and they started reintroducing the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and all these things, that he has a chance to possibly reinvent the whole Marvel MCU universe stuff. But the question is, will they? I don't know. I think there's an opportunity there. They could, but we'll just have to see if he's smart enough to figure out how to do it, because they have all the pieces except Spider-Man, right? So I don't know.
All right, guys. So I'm going to bring on an expert on this topic, Tom Connors Jr. from Midnight's Edge. Tom, what was your take on this variety expose? Like this had to shake the ground over at Marvel and Disney, don't you think? You there, buddy?
Hello, Tom. This
Hello,
is
Tom
ground
Connors.
control to Major Tom.
While we're waiting for Tom, can I share this real quick? My favorite part of the article was Marvel is truly FUCK'd. The whole Kang angle.
Mm-hmm.
And it finishes with, I don't see a path to how they can move forward with him. And they've set up like 5 movies with this character.
Yeah.
Like that statement alone is like, it's over.
Whereas I'm looking at the Marvels specifically, because I mentioned this on FNT last night, and I think I may have mentioned it in a previous stream, but I went ahead and went back to all of the domestic opening weekends for the MCU. And I focus specifically on what are considered to be the lowest openings for the MCU, some of the worst performers. So Incredible Hulk, right, had one of the lowest openings. You had Ant-Man 2015, one of the lowest openings. And I looked and said, okay, let's assume that The Marvels, coming out next weekend, makes $75 million domestic opening. Now, right now, it's not projected to do that well. Box Office Pro has the range between 45 and 62 million. But even like for the sake of just being generous, if it got to $75 million opening domestically, because of the average ticket price, that's around 5.7 million tickets for that weekend. That would be the lowest number of tickets sold for an MCU film ever. So that's how bad this release is. It wouldn't be the worst total money because obviously, rates of inflation. But as far as total tickets are concerned, this would be about 1 million tickets less than Ant-Man 2015. This would be 2 million tickets less than Incredible Hulk from 2008. So we're talking about the worst opening in the entire history of the MCU just based on, just ticket sale estimates alone. And then add to that the fact that they're spending so much money on this crap. They're in a very bad, very, very bad situation.
All right. Tom, are you with us now?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, Tom, what's your take on this groundbreaking expose that Variety published? Do you think it's going to have some effect with Disney and Marvel going forward?
I fucking knew it! Oh!
Well, yeah. No, they're in crisis mode right now. Shit ain't working. Shit ain't been working for a couple of years. You guys said it just before I come in. James Gunn said it in an interview a little while back here that if it wasn't for him coming in and having to basically map out the Infinity Stone saga so he could write his movie, we wouldn't have had a plan. And we're starting to kind of see that. And it's funny you said this is kind of like the Kathleen Kennedy playbook. Feige's been running the Kathleen Kennedy playbook before Kathleen Kennedy even started running that book. I mean, he didn't have a plan. He took all the credit for anything that worked. As soon as all the talent left, shit started hitting the fan, and that's where they're at right now. They've got to make a big change. Kang is not the answer. I agree with you guys. Doctor Doom was the logical next place to go. You spent all that money on Fox for what? At this point, like,
right? Yeah. Why did you buy Fox? You're not going to use it? What's the point?
They've released like 5 movies since then. Like, and one of them they just recently buried, like Haunting in Venice. I know Odin will tell you that managed to barely squeak out, making at least not profit, but maybe just breaking even. And what do? They dump it on Hulu. Like, what are you doing? Like, First of all, people didn't understand that this was a Poirot movie or whatever you say his name to begin with, because of the piss poor advertising you did with it. In fact, we've been talking to somebody inside about that piss poor advertising, because they're curious about how we thought it was so bad, and we're telling them how I think it's so bad. It's
They were
like,
going for the kids. They were trying to get that horror genre that had no interest in.
You advertised
that
the wrong movie. Exactly.
Exactly.
This movie is not what you advertise. Once you get into it, it's a Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile sequel, right? Like, it is what it is, and it's a fine film. But whatever they were trying to do, like Odin said, they were trying to make this out to be like The Exorcist. It ain't. It ain't even remotely close to that. And the people are enjoying the film, and the word's starting to get around. But that's just kind of indicative of what's wrong with Disney. They spent all this money. Bob spent all this money on this crap, and they've done nothing but destroy it. Marvel, they did the same thing with Disney or Star Wars. Down the line, we've all said this stuff 1,000,000 times over. And really, if you think about it, Marvel was destroyed worse than Star Wars, because you could have at any time shifted Marvel and nobody would have noticed, because they've been doing that the whole time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And at this point, I believe each and every bit of this, because there was a little pushback on this article, and the writer that they were using as evidence as pushback deleted his tweet. So I don't know about that now. And that would be the Blade situation where the writer's like, well, I never saw any script where Blade was the 4th lead and blah, 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 blah. Well, that individual deleted their tweet. Not only deleted their tweet, deleted their entire Twitter account.
Just nuked their account from Orbit.
Nuked their entire account. Yeah. So
he's not worried about that at all.
Something's going on. They're in 4-alarm fire panic mode over there at Disney right now, trying to figure this thing out. They know, like Odin said, the Marvels is going to play worse than any of their other films. At least for the first Captain Marvel, they had the women's groups helping them buy tickets up with that female power thing. At least with Shang-Chi, they had the Golden Open. With Black Panther, beyond just being, a success, the first one, they had, the Black Panther Challenge. I don't even know if they had that for the second film. If they did, it didn't help, right? And I think you're right, Odin. Even if they've got that going for this film, it ain't going to help. This movie's going to bomb harder than any of the other Marvel films have before because it has absolutely nothing going for it. They're trying desperately to kind of push this idea out there that, it's girl power. Remember Barbie? You had fun with that. Come see this. It's a lot like that. And then the other side of it, they're going, remember Thanos? Well, this chick is carrying on what he was supposed to do. So you got to come see it now. They are so desperate. They're trying to come up with every little thing they can throw out there. It's like, people are like, no, I'm good. I don't need another Captain Marvel. I didn't see the show with that girl in it. And I don't even know anything about Monica Rambeau because I didn't watch WandaVision. So guess what? You're advertising and make a movie for an audience that no longer exists. Fuck the woke part. You've now put yourself in a position where people have to do 12 to 13, 14, 15 hours of homework just to watch your fucking movie. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. But this thing has now caved under the weight of itself regardless of the woke.
Tom, they're going to have some kind of refresher catch-up thing at the front of the movie, right? So
that's the problem. They don't even really do that anymore, Matt. They don't even do we used to go into a movie and see the last 15 minutes of the last movie like they used to do that all the time. They don't even do that for Marvel at all. They don't give you any kind of catch-up. And that was one rule that Stan Lee always had, is he said that, remember, every comic book is some kid's comic book. So you have to, in some way in the story, introduce them to this character. Whether it's through a line of dialogue, just an event, and then, you get to see their power and whatever it is, you have to remember that every comic book is somebody's first comic book. They stopped making movies that way. It used to be that way. You could go see a movie that was a sequel without having to worry about seeing the first one most of the time because they would give you just enough information to get by. Right. And they forgot how to do that. And that's what Marvel needs to get back to, is say, fuck this shared universe. Sure, we can have some team ups once in a while, but let's get back to just fundamentally making one movie at a time before we get so far ahead of ourselves. What's this phase business? And now it's just going to poison DC because Gunn has gone over there thinking, well, this is how I got to do this over here because this is how it was done over there. No, you should have just come in and done one movie at a time. Don't announce this whole thing. Started with Superman. See how that worked. Don't do the thing they did before because that's what destroyed everything.
It's really crazy to me because if you go back, you look at all these like Hall H presentations at Comic-Con and stuff, and they always had their big diagram of all the movies attached to this movie and that, and it's coming out at this time and this month and this place. And I don't think any of those things that the Disney companies have presented, they're all about what, 50-50 on what actually showed up compared to what they put up there.
Especially if you go by dates.
So, yeah, it's really poor, man. I don't get it, and that was their way of saying, hey, look how organized we are, like how much thought we're putting into all this, but that none of it.
Well, that was the grand illusion, Matt, right?
Yeah,
is if they had planned and mapped this thing out. No,
that
is not the case.
They introduced Mahershala Ali or whatever his name is at Comic-Con, like, what was that, 5 years ago now?
You know what's funny? It's 2 days or a day before that happened. I was talking to a friend of mine who happened to be a writer who would have been on the writing team for Blade had they figured out how to get Wesley Snipes in there. Now, I'm looking back on that, and he's explaining to me that they wanted him for a Whistler role. Now, I'm thinking on it, like, why would he play Whistler? Thinking on it now, they probably wanted this way back then. And that's probably why Wesley was resistant. He's probably like, why would I play fourth lead to a bunch of chicks? Because like my writer guy said, he had no problem with the fact that it was, Blade's daughter kind of passing of the torch thing. But it did seem like Wesley was not happy with what they were doing, and they just weren't seeing eye to eye on anything.
I just don't think that movie's going to come out. It's not going to get made. That's where I'm at with Blade right now. So,
well, I mean, is it a show? Is it a movie? I feel like it goes back and forth like every day.
Well, technically, it's always been a movie, but at this point, we'll see if it even sees the light of day. Vampire not seeing the light of day. There's a joke in there somewhere.
Either way, it'll be fire.
Yeah.
Take you to hell.
You all right, Matt?
Oh
Yeah, I've got a technical malfunction going on my end, but
Oh no.
I wanted to ask you guys the like, is there a way that Disney could step in and right this ship? Just in general, is there any possible way that this situation can be salvaged?
That's like asking the delinquent student to take control of the class at this point.
You would essentially have to, like, whoever the highest of high execs are, which let's just be frank, is not a very smart person, or at the very least not someone at this point who's competent with the material that he has available to him, would have to clean house completely. And again, as I said earlier, find people that are actually fans and actually have ideas of what to do with them and can execute them. Until you have that, there's really nothing that can be done.
Bob Iger would have to actually like to make money instead of lose it. That would be the number one thing.
Okay, so Tom talked a little bit about Twitter and this guy deleting his Twitter account, but we had some big news coming out this week about how the head of HBO was using a fake bot army.
I think the bigger news is that he actually just admitted it. He's just like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, well, it came out in a lawsuit, and so he had to basically admit it. But this thing, and it was kind of funny because Rolling Stone actually did a big expose on that, because the Rolling Stone movie critics were the ones that he was targeting, or TV show critics, or whatever. But it was a really kind of fascinating look at this stuff. Like for instance, the exchange was one of at least 6 instances between June 2020 and April 2021 in which Blois, who's the head of HBO, and McCaffrey discussed using what they called a secret army to fire back at several TV critics on Twitter, now known as X, as well as anonymous commenters on articles about HBO programming, according to text exchanges reviewed by Rolling Stone. In this case, the two decided not to hit back on the critic online, but in numerous instances, the HBO executives did just that, trolling the television critics with snarky responses from a fake Twitter account and dropping pro-HBO comments on a trade publication stories. And, it's not uncommon for people who are in a high-profile position to have a fake account where they can anonymously interact with people online. But what was interesting is they actually had people who they would assign hey, make a fake account so that we can start trolling these critics. And it was a very kind of interesting kind of look inside how studio executives handle criticism. And Gina Carano actually came out with yet another novel length tweet response to this. And this is an article from Bounding Into Comics, which kind of highlights it. But what was interesting is that, when the head of HBO was responding to critics, he would use very inflammatory kind of virtue signaling stuff. It's oh, it's funny how 2 white men are commenting about a show about women, right? That was one of his tactics. And because he knew that it would be picked up on by the Twitter mob.
The woke brigade, yeah.
The woke brigade, exactly. And then Gina Carano came out and she basically published this huge tweet. But she basically said, Bob Iger, I guess, told her, or she heard it secondhand or something like that. She said that Disney was going to originally buy Twitter before Elon bought it. But then they, after doing some analytics, and they found out that there were so many fake users on Twitter, they said, why buy Twitter and deal with the expense and headache when you could just create an army of fake accounts and control the narrative by, making stuff trend and posting and stuff like that. And so it was a much more efficient use of money and energy to just create armies of bot accounts than it was to actually buy the platform and run it. And there's something to that, because we have a lot of examples of this stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I noticed that once Elon kind of took over and purged a lot of these bot accounts, that I'm not getting as much, left-wing hate for my takes on certain movies. And
no,
shows.
but I am getting a lot of porn bots.
I get a lot. Yeah, I get a lot of porn bots.
Yeah, but the interesting thing here is basically so Zack Snyder, right? The WB did an investigation. They found out that 13% of the accounts that were advocating for the Snyder Cut were from his PR firm that was like pushing these things, right? So like 13% of that bot army was enough to create an AstroTurf movement to get other people on board. But if you ever said anything bad about Zack Snyder on Twitter, you'd instantly be piled on by certain accounts, right?
Yep.
But now if you say something bad about Snyder, it's like crickets.
Well,
The war of 2021.
Well, as a thing, I don't think it's crickets necessarily. Instead of getting bots bought and paid for by these giant corporations and studios, instead you just get general bots that all sites have, which are the porno bots. So are immediately porno bots, and you can block. But I think it's interesting.
Check out my OnlyFans.
You mean they don't want to take me out on a date, Odin?
No, I'm sorry, they don't.
Well, what's interesting about all this is basically like this is kind of brought to light the studio strategy of like attacking fans and critics using fake bot armies that are secret. And the only reason the HBO guy came out with this is because in discovery for this lawsuit that he's facing, like it was going to be made public. And so he just came out, owned it. And he said 8 posts over the course of like 2 years or something like that. That was all like he did.
He's
but
downplaying it, but
yeah. You know that there's more to it than that. Go ahead, Matt.
How do you make a bot army? It's like, is there like
It's
this?
not that hard.
Is there a giant warehouse in
No, it's a bot.
downtown Anaheim?
Just type it
that's
into
full of a bunch of
YouTube.
kids?
It's literally like a wall full of phones, and then you
Yeah.
have these things that are just pushing buttons, and it's weird. It's
And
like
it's copy and paste stuff.
I
yeah,
guess
it's
I
just
just don't
copy and
understand-
pasting. Yeah,
I just don't understand how it works. You know, these massive
you just build an
bot
algorithm
armies,
basically.
and this is like, okay, whatever. It's just
No,
It's just
I
a
know,
bunch
it's
of phones.
not-
It's just a bunch of phones accessing
Yeah.
the same thing, and you can
If-
control
if
them.
I
in
tried to
mass.
make-
for keywords and shit. Yeah,
I try to
But you
make
can use the
extra-
software to literally control them all at the same time. So you can go in like, I'm gonna go like this thing at the same time, and like 4,000 phones will go do the same exact
like
thing.
if I
you
say
did.
Zack Snyder sucks, they have an algorithm that picks up on that, and
Yeah,
it'll
but-
come in and send about 12 bot accounts going like, "You're a suck and you're a
But-
jerk. Let's see you lift 12,000 pounds or some shit like that."
But all of these fake accounts, do they all have fake emails? Or they all like,
yeah,
fake email one at protonmail.com? Fake
Yeah,
email
DC
2 at
lover
protonmail.com?
6669 17,521 or whatever. Yeah.
So I would just, I don't know. It seems very sus to me. All of it. It just
oh, it is sus. Yeah,
seems very strange.
bots make no sense.
What I think is funny is that we know it's not just Warner Brothers, right? This is
Right.
we've seen this tactic. We could trace it all the way back, probably farther than this, but I would say the first time we really see it surface would have been Fantastic Four or Fan Four Stick or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And then we had, the Ghostbusters and move on from there to Star Wars. Star Wars is where I really see it pick up. That was where it really kind of hit me as weird. Because with Ghostbusters and Fan Four Stick, I could actually believe people coming out and going, "You're just racist. Well, you're just sexist." Because there were those idiots out there. But when it came to that, I'm just like with Star Wars, it's like, no, people are making valid points here. Like Rey, nobody had a problem with Rey being a female to begin with. The problem people are having is that she doesn't do anything. She doesn't earn anything.
right.
She don't want to go nowhere. She's not a heroic type, and she just instantly is able to fix the Millennium Falcon. She kicks the shit out of Kylo Ren. But what the fuck's going on here? Like,
Well,
that's what people were saying, and that's when I started to notice that, wait a minute, people are making legitimate gripes, and you've got tons and tons of people just coming after them. Like, something ain't right. I know Star Wars is big,
So
but that's when I noticed there was something goofy.
yeah, Tom, I want to throw this to Brian for a second because
Sorry.
Brian, it's one of those things where like it's very obvious that either the studios set something like this up in-house to control the narrative to try to, make sure that their properties weren't negatively impacted, or they outsourced it to a PR firm or a tech firm to basically create these secret armies of accounts to help AstroTurf the narrative enough to get the low IQ social media users to hop on board the bandwagon and perpetuate this narrative. So like every time you had something where it's like, oh, Captain Marvel, if you don't like Captain Marvel, it's misogynist. And so the bot armies would be out there and be like misogyny, misogyny, misogyny. And then like all the activists would be like, oh, there must be misogyny over here. I'm gonna latch onto that. I noticed that with my take on Birds of Prey, where I had I had in some cases like people repeating the exact same tweet, criticizing me over and over and over again. And ever since Elon kind of made his purge, like I haven't noticed anything like that. And it's actually like a lot less toxic on X than it used to be because of this. So do you think that there's something to be said about how studios for years under the old Twitter regime and under government's approval have been manipulating the narrative on social media?
Oh yeah, there's definitely something to be said, especially with how easy the bot armies are. Sorry, or the bot nets. It doesn't even have to be phones. Like it can be a little bit of malware on your computer that you don't even notice and doesn't actually do anything negative to your system, and it doesn't really use very much space. It just opens up a hidden browser and it does whatever the user says, wants it to do. And so these botnets can go out there and sort of shape where the social forecast is heading. And then people that are trying to follow that forecast and trying to, either they're trying to get a name for themselves or they want to know what's popular. They think, oh, this is popular, or this is where I need to be so I can grow my brand. And they start latching onto it. Then their fans latch onto it. And eventually the normies think that it's a real thing. And it was all created by some Chinese guy with access to 4,000 phones and a couple hundred malware computers. This is a common thing on social media. When Elon Musk is like, we got to get rid of the bots, he's not joking, because it messes up his numbers too. When he goes, oh, we have this many users, if 20% of them are bots, that is bad. That means that 20% of the value of your company is worthless, right? It's worthless. Also, you can't really know what's popular or trending, especially for Twitter. Social media is a big place for let's find out what people want to buy, watch, listen to, etc. If bots are controlling that narrative, then you don't even know that data that you're gathering to sell to other people is no longer very valuable if 25% of it is ran by bots, and you don't know how effective those bots are. Can 25% of those bots control the other 75%? We don't even know. So when he was like, we need to get rid of these bots, people are like, why is he complaining so much about bots? Who cares about Twitter eggs? You don't get it. It's not like some guy made a couple accounts. It is thousands and millions of accounts even that are trying to control the narrative, which messes up their data, because they can't they can't sell reliable information on where social trends are going. And, and it messes up their entire value of their website. What if you have 100 million users, but 25 million of them aren't real? Well, you can't say those 25 million are valuable. When he bought Twitter, I remember he said that after they did an audit, they found out that the bot problem was so bad that he overpaid for Twitter. I could have listen, you overpaid for Twitter regardless, dude. But that's the problem with bots. Like, you don't even know if that movie was really good. You don't know if Killer of the Flower Moon was good when there's 4,000 retweets. You don't even know how many of those retweets are real anymore. This is the problem with bots. We gotta get rid of them so we can go, hey, you know what? People are liking this, or look at this ratio, or whatever, and know that it's a real thing.
And Odin, just to kind of put another nail into this coffin here, 13% of the accounts that were advocating for the Snyder Cut were proven to be bots that were owned by Zack Snyder's PR firm, who he specifically hired to do this type of thing, to AstroTurf this. Now that's you might hear that and be like, oh, 13% of the accounts, that's not a whole lot of accounts, but those 13% were responsible for the vast majority of the posts advocating for this thing. And so they actually got WB to do the Snyder Cut because of this method. And I feel like the studios also use this to attack fans and quash criticism, especially directed at YouTubers that we know, like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and stuff like that, where when they come out with a take on stuff and they got dogpiled on by these bot armies to try to squash them or create a counter narrative or something like that, it was a powerful and effective tactic. And now that they can't do that anymore, we're starting to see Marvel be in crisis and be like, okay, we have to actually sit down and talk about the consequences of our action. We see Kathleen Kennedy getting called out by South Park because, you know, like her bot army is not there to protect her anymore. And Gina Carano has just been out there exposing all this stuff and basically saying like, yeah, this is how it worked. Kathleen Kennedy had an army of bots that would go out there and attack anyone who was criticizing her or Star Wars or stuff like that, accuse you of being an anti-Semite for a meme that you posted, like all this other stuff. And now that these tools are slowly being kind of like taken away by Elon, they're having a harder time controlling the narrative. But the fact remains that like this was a powerful way for Hollywood to basically control things. How do you think they're going to handle it now that they can't rely on that anymore?
I mean, I think that they're going to handle it pretty poorly. I think that you're kind of already seeing that because you've had all of these things coming out with South Park episode, the exposés, and maybe it's because I'm just not as active on social media as I used to be, but I'm not really seeing any very good PR responses. I'm not really seeing a lot of good defenses against what has been said. And so I think that ultimately when you lose that PR battle, which I think right now they are losing tremendously in just almost every single front. And then you add to that the fact that there's really not going to be any wins or victories coming their way. You know, as I mentioned, right, the Marvels is going to be a very big loss for them, right? Someone in the chat was trying to say that the normies going to go out and support it. It's like, well, why didn't the normies go out to support the other MCU films from just the past couple of months that either lost money or barely broke even? I mean, again, like to try to say, oh, they're going to show up. It's like, well, I've just already laid out to you the facts that it's going to be the worst opening weekend ticket sale wise in the entire history of the MCU. You don't get break even money when you have that kind of an opening, right? Now, obviously, never say never, but at the same time, right now, there's no data to suggest that that's going to happen. So, yeah, I think that ultimately, when you just look at everything that's going on, and again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again, they have to be able to kind of take that moment to do a mea culpa, to realize that they have made clear mistakes, that they have soured their brands. And I think that's the biggest problem with all this is that even if you clean house, like I've been saying, they still have to revive their brands. And that's a very difficult thing to do, right? You have to be able to do it right. You have to be able to have somebody that can get, you know, the audience that maybe once was there or a newer audience excited. And right now, it just does not seem like that's going to happen.
You know, Tom, one of the interesting things about this story to me is just how influential of a platform Twitter was, because like I assume that this stuff's happening on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Reddit and all these other places, but maybe it's just not as big of an issue there because like the interesting thing about Twitter, or Twix as we now call it, is that a lot of reporters and news media people like were addicted to Twitter. And so when stuff was happening on Twitter, they were more aware of it and would craft news narratives based off of what they were seeing on Twitter, as opposed to something like Facebook or Instagram or something like that. And so like this notion that Twitter was kind of like the tastemaker, it was the thing that tracked the trends and stuff like that. And now that Elon owns it and he kind of like made it less elitist, and you know, you had like a lot of reporters kind of like leave Twitter, and you got rid of a lot of these bots, and Twitter's actually a much more normal place right now. It's almost boring in a weird sense. But do you think that that Twix going in this direction is like a more honest way of getting like an actual read on like what's happening in the industry?
I mean, as far as the whole like social media business, like
just in terms of like stuff that's actually trending, as opposed to bots making stuff trend, honest takes, as opposed
because
to
they
like,
also pay to have things trend. Let's not forget about that, right? And so I can never trust anything that's trending that doesn't feel natural or that I can tell is natural. If it's about a movie or anything like that, I always take it with a grain of salt. Like just looking at the trending stuff right now, like
Andor.
Yeah, great example of stuff that
Andor.
Did anybody ever really watch Andor? No. The only reason it was trending is because, well, yeah, but
He just watched it, but the rest
You
of
were
us
the
don't
only one
care.
defending the show.
exactly.
In any real
Like
way.
at this point, like of all the people on Twitter talking about it, I'm sure it was only trending because Disney paid to have it trend. Same thing with Star Trek.
It was trending because of Star Wars Theory's video the other day coming out, where he basically contradicted himself.
Oh well, I thought you meant when it was on, like in that
No.
respect, and that's probably the first time it naturally ever trended.
No, what?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
yeah.
I go to the trending right now, and Andor comes up as the number one thing on my trending list. So it's
Not
very
on
strange.
mine. It's not even on mine. I got
Yeah.
WWE, Crown Jewel.
Yeah,
I got
which
Rebel
well,
Moon.
Well, that
Well,
makes sense
Biden.
because it's live right now. So that makes total
but also
sense.
Tom's in a different part of the country, and
Right.
trending stuff.
So yeah, it goes by
so
wherever
is
you're at.
regional. Yeah. But I find this whole thing interesting because it feels like the studios were so reliant on these bot armies to basically run cover for them for all their bad decisions. And now that they don't have this cover, you see mainstream stuff like Hollywood Reporter and Variety basically like reporting on bad news, and it's not getting squashed or pushed back on.
You guys were talking about this earlier. As far as like the Disney thing, I don't think it has anything to do with so much with the strike as Disney's running out of money. Because we got to remember, a lot of these puff pieces that get written, they're basically advertisements, right? The studio will give them some sort of access or whatever, or the exclusive cover deal for this movie or whatever coming up. And that's part of the whole payola scam of this whole fucking thing from top to bottom. And to me, that's never going to change. But as far as them being in social media, I'm not surprised. We all knew this. We all knew people from inside were doing this. And we had heard from several people that, even KK and all them over there at Disney have their little fucking army of social media trolls and shit like that. And
I'm a Midnight's Edge troll. I'm a Midnight's Edge bot.
He is.
I'm just going to put it out there right now.
He totally is.
Yeah.
Every day I go out there, how dare you hate Tom? You piece
No,
of
but I
shit.
mean, as far as them using social media, you're right. And I think the reason why Twitter has become more of a kind of the more immediate one that they like to go to is because the other ones that you mentioned, Facebook especially, it's a little easier to avoid people on, right? As opposed to Twitter, where it's literally almost like it's laying all out on this table for everybody to see. The other social media platforms, you almost have to kind of go navigate and look for people or look for certain things to be able to kind of comment on them, to where Twitter is just constantly this live active feed that, you could just click on. Like if I click on Rebel Moon right now, I can look at all the posts that have to do with that, right? As opposed to like Facebook or something like that, it's a little harder to navigate, or Instagram or TikTok. And I don't even know how can you even type shit on TikTok? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't use TikTok. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the other problem is I'm just not up to any speed on any of these social media things. So I don't even understand how most of them work.
You can't
Even
really share
Twitter.
links on TikTok though, so it's like
Well,
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so I don't
What's
know.
interesting about TikTok is that Gen Zers are using it as a search engine, right? Like instead of going to Google, they go to
What?
TikTok to ask questions and search for information. And Gen Zers are like the 25 to 11-year-olds out there right now. But I mean that's how they get their information is like and I wish our guest had actually showed up because he's quite a big TikToker. He could have enlightened us on this thing. It was the older millennial, but unfortunately,
250,000 subs over there.
Yeah, unfortunately, he I guess spaced on us today. But we got a super chat for $9.99 from Dennis Wright. Who is your favorite female superhero? Mine would be She-Hulk. No gender swaps. Tom Connors, who's your favorite female Marvel superhero?
Marvel?
Yeah.
Superhero?
Yeah. Female.
Storm, I guess? I don't know. I'd have to think.
What about you, Odin?
I guess because I'm not much of a comics person, so I just can only go based off of movies, and the movies haven't really been that good. So I'm gonna go with something weird because I don't even know much about her, but I've just heard about her and it sounds so stupid. Squirrel Girl.
Oh, you stole my answer.
Going by the movies, I'd probably pick Gamora now. But yeah.
Yeah.
OG
Gamora,
Black Widow.
For me, it's
or-
Mystique.
yeah.
Mystique, because you can have sex with whoever you want.
Oh,
Wow.
Perfection.
Dang.
Come on.
You'd make her turn into a dude. So, it's
Whatever. Hey, don't kink shame me, okay? Like, hey, hon,
We
can,
know
I
you
absolutely
can
will shame you.
can you do Jason Momoa tonight, please? Please.
That's terrible.
A little bit of Jason Momoa, but sans the penis.
Jason
Thank you.
Momoa now or Fast 10?
Fast 10.
I mean-
can you also replicate the stupid little pacifiers in his hair? Thank you very much.
What about you, Vader?
I don't know. Probably Black Widow in the movies. and Mary Jane Watson in the comic books, but she's not a superhero. She's just
Well, depends on which
She's
version, I
just
guess. Yeah.
so yeah.
Was Mary Jane? Wasn't she at least once or twice a superhero?
Not when I collected comics.
I don't know.
She was arm candy, So
Come on, y'all are Monica Rambeau and Squirrel Girl fans, and you know it.
no,
I don't like Monica Rambeau at all. Although I'll take some Squirrel Girl. She's hot.
Thank you for that, Brian. Really,
Yes.
really good insight there.
She is.
I don't
She's
have
super
I
fine.
don't have a favorite female Marvel superhero. The
Isn't
best
that the
female
Verizon
superhero.
girl? Right?
No,
Jessica Jones was a lot of fun too in the show, but I don't know.
Squirrel Girl is
she's in the
Lena
comic.
Dunham. So
No. Squirrel Girl was what? No, it's not.
yes, it is.
No,
Might
it's
as-
not. It's
it might
no,
as well be.
they didn't even cast her, right? But it was supposed to be played by one of the cell phone girls, T-Mobile girl, or I'm not joking. It was supposed to be played by one of the cell phone commercial
Listen.
girls.
It might have been, but it was also Lena Dunham was going to write, direct, produce.
Well,
and
then I'm
star.
gonna take back what I just
All right,
said. I
hold
don't
on.
think she's hot.
We go into a lot of tangents on this show, but we're not going to do one on Squirrel Girl. So what's the next topic?
That was a joke. Yeah, I totally didn't mean for it
Thanks,
to go any
Tom.
farther than that.
I hate Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl sucks.
All right, guys. So since we're talking about Disney running out
culture.
of money, let's talk about Ike Perlmutter's revenge on Disney. And this is kind of like an
Perlmutter
industry
Palpatine.
thing. So basically, the ex-head of Marvel Comics division, Ike Perlmutter, joins forces with Nelson Peltz in the battle for Disney's very soul. So for those of you guys out there who might not be hip to the business jive of this stuff, Nelson Peltz is what's known as an activist investor, and he runs a hedge fund that has been trying to basically make a power play over at Disney. Now, when you hear the term activist investor, you might think, oh, this guy's like a left-wing lunatic. But what it means to be an activist investor is basically you get these minority shares in companies and you try to influence the board to course correct on the companies. And if that doesn't work, then you do a hostile takeover and you force the company to take austerity measures. And basically, the activism part is about taking a company that's in trouble and making it more financially sound. And so Nelson Peltz is a very famous activist investor. He's done a lot of big companies like this. And he's been making a play for Disney for a while now because he feels like Disney is being terribly mismanaged. And this is a guy who's also, like, he's a billionaire many times over. He's donated to George H.W. Bush and Trump. So he's not like a left-wing guy. But he sees Disney as being highly undervalued. And he thinks that the board of directors of that company has been severely mismanaging the company. And so what he's been trying to do is he's been trying to buy up enough shares to get more board seats so that he can influence the board to change direction. And at the last round, he actually got Bob Iger to agree to some austerity measures like laying off a certain amount of the workforce and et cetera, et cetera. But then they elected the guy who runs Nike to be the head of the Disney board. And that guy's a super woke leftist. And Ike Perlmutter, who was famously kind of like backstabbed by Kevin Feige to take over Marvel Studios, because originally Ike Perlmutter was just in charge of all of Marvel. And then Bob Iger sided with Kevin Feige and relegated Ike Perlmutter to just the publishing division of Marvel as opposed to the movie division. And so Ike Perlmutter, who recently just got ousted, he basically got fired by Marvel and Disney, had something like 30 million shares of Disney stock. And he has sold that or sided or put it with Perlmutter's hedge fund so that Perlmutter now has an even bigger stake in Disney. And this is all part of like a kind of like behind the scenes power play to basically get Disney to stop caring more about messaging and politics and get back to being more financially sound. So basically what Nelson wants is he wants them to spend less money on like movies and TV shows and stop relying on the income from their parks to carry the losses in other divisions, and also get away from the politics and get more towards entertainment and family entertainment and stuff like that. Basically the fundamentals of what made Disney a valuable company to begin with. And there's a lot of pushback against his takeover because the people on the Disney board don't align with him. Like they're like, hey, we don't care about money. We care more about the message and our how people view us in Hollywood, our status and stuff like that. So I want to go to our two kind of Hollywood business guys on this thing. Odin, what's your take on Ike Perlmutter basically giving Disney the middle finger and saying like, hey, I'm giving all my stock to this guy to fuck with you?
Yeah, I think there was some talk online about how people were kind of surprised because they just never thought he would ever let go of his position of what he had. But I think it also is to me, it's a good sign in that we know that Perlmutter is from that era of the MCU that actually was good, right? He's actually from that time when things were looking, pretty darn good at that time. And so I think that it's almost that reminder of, okay, there seem to be other people now trying to come in, trying to, return Marvel, return just the general company to a much better financial situation. And I think that with him kind of giving over what he has, showing that he obviously has some level of trust in this guy, makes me think, okay, as long as it ends up actually resulting in something, right? If there's actual results that can come from it, I think that it will end up being a good move. And I think that it'll end up being for the better. But it's also something where, again, obviously, it's going to be one of those things where in the long run, we're only going to be able to know something in the long run.
What's your take on this, Tom? Do you think that if Nelson gets enough power on the board, that he could actually maybe potentially fix Disney?
Well, I mean, first of all, I gotta say, Nelson Peltz is basically upgrade in Idiocracy. Anybody who's seen the movie, that he wants his money. He will get his money. It doesn't matter if he's got to go through time to get it. And this guy has had enough of Bob's shit. And he has now talked Ike Perlmutter into giving him controlling interest in his votes. All now Nelson needs is somebody like George Lucas. And this is what's funny is I'd been saying stuff like this a while back and people are like, oh, you're nuts. Like, no, but if all of a sudden George Lucas is like, fuck it, and gives Nelson Peltz all his voting power, Nelson Peltz will soon become the most powerful person out there when it comes to Disney and could make Bob's life a living hell. He already is. You can tell just by looking at Bob that he's like dealing with some heavy duty shit in the background. And I think it's Nelson Peltz pressure. At this point, Nelson's like, I want to get paid. You took one of the most lucrative companies in the world and you've destroyed it on your watch, Bob. And Bob has positioned himself where nobody can question Bob. Bob can do whatever he wants. He has zero oversight. He owns the board. I mean, he thinks he's Palpatine, like, he owns the Senate in this case. But, he's going to learn pretty quickly, I think, that Nelson Peltz is like, no. When it comes to money talking and bullshit walking, you better get walking, Bob, because your money's bullshit. Because at this point, he hasn't produced anything. They haven't got any dividends for how long now? Like, this is insane that a company as big as Disney has not been paying out dividends.
He was also criticizing the executive pay. He said that the executives were getting paid too much.
Way too much, considering there's no dividends being paid out. Exactly.
Yeah. So, Brian, one of the interesting things about this is that Nelson Peltz was very, very adamant in his criticism of Bob Iger's acquisition of Fox, where he was basically like this is billions of dollars to acquire this studio that you don't need to acquire. Like there's no financial reason to acquire Fox. And Ike Perlmutter has also been highly critical of how Disney has been going about doing their business because he's very much aligned with Peltz in the sense that like he just likes core business fundamentals. And it was under Perlmutter's leadership that Marvel kind of got their shit together and created their own studio and had their publishing renaissance. And then like slowly but surely as he lost power, it went more woke. And Kevin Feige took over the studios portion, but Iger was really kind of like the force behind it to make business sense. So, what's your take on this? Do you think that it's possible Disney could get back to kind of sound business fundamentals?
Oh God, I hope so. I have a lot of stock in Disney, and I'm dying slowly. I keep looking at it, and it's never getting better. I don't actually care if Disney succeeds, other than I just want to get my stock back to my buy price. Okay, when I bought in at $95, I thought it was a steal.
Yeah.
How is that not a steal? It's Disney, for the love of God. And I can't get back to what I bought in as, man. That's just killing me. I just want to sell. I just want to sell my stock. So the answer is yes, I hope they do.
It's at
Okay, work it
85
out.
right now. 85.
And it was at 85, bro. I bought it at 90, like $96. I thought, oh, I'm good. It'll never. $96 is the bottom of the barrel, and it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping.
And Brian's reaction is why Nelson Peltz is acting the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
Disney is one of those stocks that you should be able to safely invest in.
Yep.
Right? They generally don't fluctuate too much. The fact that they have gone to these depths in the last year or so are very telling. The fact that they're ignoring that they hit their height under Chapek and they're still trying to paint him as some sort of bad guy. And both that article, that MCU book, all that stuff all skates over that business. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're right, Brian, that this is basically boiling down to the fact that you had a point where when Chapek was in office over at Disney, their stock was worth almost $200 million $200 a share. Now it's down to $85. You just said it yourself.
Insane.
Well,
You're
guys,
right. And regardless of how you feel about Disney, you should be able to safely invest in Disney for a conservative long haul.
Well, guys, in addition to this, so Disney has now officially put in their order to buy Hulu. Now, the deal hasn't completed yet, but what's crazy about this, and this goes back to basically Disney just spending like a drunken sailor, they're going to pay at least $8.61 billion for just a 33% stake in the streamer from Comcast Universal, so that they can basically like own the streaming service. And this is another example of like how Disney has just been, acquiring stuff and paying out money that they don't need to pay out. And I know for a fact that Nelson Peltz is probably very upset about, the sale, but this was something that Bob Iger put in place before he quote unquote retired. But this just goes back to more of the same with Disney, where like they seem to just not care about like losing money. Like they're just shelling money out left and right. And I know that that Peltz and Perlmutter were both upset about choosing to go political and getting their sweetheart deal in Florida revoked because of it. And that costed them a bunch of money. It feels like Disney is just like taking L's left and right now. And Odin, what do you think about, is it possible Disney could go bankrupt?
I mean, it's possible for anything to, for any business or corporation to go bankrupt. I mean, there's that old myth, too big to fail. I mean, obviously we know that things can, that any company, any corporation can go through that. And I think that what they're doing is they are definitely spending themselves into, at the very least, a crisis situation. And I think that's the reason why you're having not these articles being written, but also all these moves being made behind the scenes with Perlmutter. And so the fact that they're going to be going through with this again, $8 billion, from where? I mean, that's kind of like where I'm sitting right now thinking, I mean, maybe on paper they have X amount of money, but I feel like they've been shelling out so much and they've not been getting returns on that. I mean, even think and go back to something like their purchase of Star Wars and think to how much money they, in addition to what they spent for the IP, spent on the movies. And then we find out after the fact, I think it was Valiant Renegade who did coverage of this, about how much profits they actually made. And I think they're still not, I still think they have not actually paid off what they put in. And again, I correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they really haven't gotten there. So they're paying off. They're continuing to buy new things, going further and further into debt to have to pay off these things over time that they are still not paying off for things that they bought 10 plus years ago. I think that is a situation where they are a house of cards waiting to fall.
Tom, Iger has a lot of ties to Obama and Biden and the Democratic Party. Do you think that he would basically just be cool with shelling out billions of dollars and then turning to the government for a bailout?
I could see him doing something to that effect because this $8.5 billion that we're hearing for Hulu, I don't know if Mike's listening in the chat, Mexican Iron Man, but he'll tell you flat out that that's a Fugazi number that Disney just came up with to put out in the press. That's not how much this thing's actually going to cost.
Very dumb.
It is. They're just putting that out there in hopes that will appease them for now. I have no idea how they're going to do this, because this is all going to be determined next year, and the value could be 3-4 times that. Disney could be screwed at this point. They could be so screwed they have no idea how screwed they could be. Mike did a really great breakdown on Midnight's Edge After Dark Thursday night, so check that out if you want to hear his take on it. But he understands it so much better than me, and at this point, yeah, I think they're in big trouble when it comes to the Hulu situation. The only thing they got going for them is that they could put all their Fox movies on Hulu now. They should basically turn Hulu into the 20th century streaming service.
Well,
Also, Hulu TV. Hulu TV is, I think, another.
Yeah,
component.
TV. Yeah.
Brian, you probably might want to just sell your stuff and take your loss and go reinvestment in something that'll make money.
Absolutely not. No, here's the deal. At one point, I put pretty much 75% of my eggs into that basket.
What are you going to do when it's $40 a share?
Well, if I sell now, I'm
$30
losing
share.
like $4,000. I'm not going to sell now. That's insane.
Do you have any stock in Peacock?
Listen, I don't, which is so stupid. I should.
What are you doing, man?
Peacock, it's not its own service though. It's a part of like Comcast or something.
Take it, go take it.
Which is
out
not a
and
good
go-
stock.
Listen, take it out, lose your $4,000, go reinvestment in some Bitcoin.
No, what I'm going to do, that's a horrible idea. Oh my
Okay.
God.
Some
Do not
NFTs.
take financial advice from this man.
Go buy some
What I'm-
NFTs.
What I'm going to do is I'm just
Katie,
going to
should-
sit on it until inflation gets me back to $95, then I'm going to sell.
Kadish has got an NFT to sell you. We'll sell it to you.
Yeah, you know, Brian, what's interesting here is that this 8.61 billion number is based off of the minimum Hulu valuation of 27.5 billion. So like all of Hulu at a minimum is worth $27.5 billion. And they're waiting for a new kind of valuation to come out to figure out how much they're actually going to have to pay for this 30% stake from Comcast Universal. And so now would probably be the time before that payment, that valuation actually happens, because at the end of the day, Comcast Universal is getting a windfall and Disney's taking a massive loss. So yeah, the stock might not be good now, but you know, once
That's true.
It's in January.
That's true. Historically, Comcast has not been a performing stock.
Yeah, give your shares to Perlmutter. Let him use it.
There you go. Yeah. Give him that little edge.
You think I'm complaining? Like, one reason why Shane is just like daily becoming more and more black-pilled because that guy put like a bunch of stock into Disney too. Look, guys, when COVID happened, Disney was on its knees. When's the next time that's gonna happen? $90? That's insane. It's not gonna go lower than that.
85.
Fuck me. Like,
Maybe it's a good time to buy. You should buy Disney.
no. And this is the problem. Every time I'm like, well, it's a good time to buy. It's not going to go any lower. It's a good time to buy. And it's like the next day it went lower. Like, what the fuck is going on? When is it going to stop leaving? It's got to stop. It's got to start going the other way. Look, my average used to be $125. I kept buying until my average was $95, and I'm still losing money.
Not financial advice. This is not a financial podcast. Just reminding everyone.
Unless
Just so you
you're
know,
putting your money
I'm
in
poor.
Peacock.
Don't take any advice from me.
But
know.
we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank everyone for showing up today for the live stream. And even though our guest never showed up, we appreciate Tom Connors jumping on the call. He is always welcome on the stream. Tom, give us any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you? Tom, you there?
No final thoughts, really. Just I'll be going live here in a little bit. Talk about Ninja Turtles over on Pop Culture Minefield, and then later on today on my channel, I'll actually have Bill Hunt of the Digital Bits on to talk a lot about home media and the state of home media and the Best Buy business, all that good stuff. So, for those who don't know who Bill Hunt is, he's one of the biggest people inside home media industry as far as reviewers go. He owns the Digital Bits website. So check us out this afternoon. Hope to see you there.
Is that Mike's
Right.
brother?
They're very good friends. They're not brothers.
Odin, any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you?
I can't believe Odin made that joke.
I was waiting for people to get it. Anyway, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, Twitter as well. And my new streaming schedule is I'm just streaming on Tuesdays, 7:30 to 9 p.m. because of the children. I got kids, so obviously that's impacting things. And hoping to get a box office breakdown up tomorrow with hopefully my voice feeling a little bit better. Always love coming on these streams, and to most of the people in the chat, shout out to y'all. Y'all are awesome.
And Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
No final thoughts except for I really hope Disney starts making some money pretty soon, so I can be liquid again. But go check me out at the Popcast Live, youtube.com/the Popcast Live. That's my live channel. Right now, we're not getting any subscribers. We're actually losing for some reason. After our demonetization, we have been throttled pretty gnarly. So if you haven't checked that out and subscribed, please go do. Please go subscribe, and we do a show every Friday at 10. Which, by the way, I think it's. Are we in the same time slot as you, Tom? We need to work that out, bro.
It's Midnight's Edge in the morning. It's what, 10 a.m.
I guess it is.
Who knows? Matt Vader 74.
Yeah.
What do we got going on the Salty Nerd channel? And do you have any final thoughts?
My final thoughts are it's going to be a crazy week coming up. So you're getting married, so I don't know what or how that's going to affect things because we're all going to be super busy. But we got a review of The Wedding Singer coming out this week in honor of your guys' pending nuptials. That was kind of a fun movie to watch. A little different for us, but it was cool. Next Saturday, we have Adam Krigler coming on this show. Supposedly, if he decides to show up, hope you guys all show up and hang out with us and Adam. And yesterday,
Who's Adam again?
Adam Krigler.
Oh, he was Tim Pool's guy, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And
Don't call him that, though. Do not call him that.
Don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not. No, sorry.
Man, yesterday we dropped our final, hopefully ever, review of Invasion for the season 2 finale, and we did that with Smitty's snippets. So that was fun to do that as well. So that's what we got going on.
Yeah, big shout out to Smitty, and also a big shout out to Jillian N and WG for gifting those 10 Salty Nerd memberships. I know the chat really appreciates you guys, and we do too. And also, just to give a shout out to everyone who donated during the live stream: JT Gunn, WG, Gavin Blackburn, and Dennis Wright. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much, especially WG for that hundo that he dropped. That is ballin'. And we appreciate you guys, contributing to the live stream because it really does help out. Alex needs to make up for taking a different job than the one he previously had, so he's making less money. He's got more kids. So he needs to rely on the podcast to make up for that shortfall. But thank you all so much for being here, and tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel, for my very first live stream as a married man. Should be fun. Anyway, guys, thank you all for being here, and stay salty, my friends.
Good luck.